White belt. Every journey in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu begins with the white belt, and it's a stage nobody forgets. It's the belt of survival, frustration, and humility. Walking into the academy for the very first time feels like stepping into another world. You put on the gi, tie that stiff white belt around your waist, even though you don't know how to, and glance around at people who move with effortless precision. They know where their hands should go, how to shift their weight, how to set up submissions before you even realize what's happening. Meanwhile, that you're trying to figure out how to sit in someone's guard without toppling over. That gap between what you see and what you can do is overwhelming, and it defines the beginning of the journey. At this stage, you're learning the absolute basics: guard, mount, side control, and back control. You hear these terms constantly, but in live training, they don't feel like concepts. They feel like traps. The guard isn't just a position. It's a place where your partner is yanking on your posture, trying to sweep or choke you. Mount isn't just sitting on top. It's being crushed under someone's weight, with your arms pinned, wondering how you're supposed to breathe. Every class introduces a technique, but in sparring, your body refuses to cooperate. You're a second too slow, a grip too loose, or you simply forget what you just drilled 5 minutes earlier. And when that happens, you tap a lot. And tapping becomes the first big lesson of jiu-jitsu. You learn quickly that it's not shameful, it's necessary. It keeps you safe, and more importantly, it teaches you that at white belt, you're tapping constantly, to arm bars, triangles, guillotines, even to basic pressure when someone much heavier smothers you. It feels discouraging at first, but every submission you give up is information. You start recognizing the patterns. That choke keeps catching me because I leave my neck exposed, or that sweep works because my weight is too far forward. Slowly, you stop thinking of tapping as failure and start treating it as feedback. The white belt stage is humbling by design. It doesn't matter how strong, athletic, or confident you are outside the academy. Once you're on the mats, you'll be put in bad positions by people smaller, weaker, or older than you. That shock breaks down your ego, and you quickly realize that jiu-jitsu isn't about brute strength, it's about efficiency. A well-placed grip or a small shift in weight can completely neutralize you, no matter how hard you resist. This realization is uncomfortable, but it's also the foundation of progress. Day by day, small improvements begin to show. At first, surviving 30 seconds without being submitted feels like a win. Then one day, you escape mount for the first time. Another day, you remember to keep your elbows tight and stop giving up arm bars so easily. The progress is so gradual that you might not notice it yourself, but your training partners do. That's why white belt is often called the belt of survival. The focus simply isn't on winning yet, it's on enduring, learning to defend, and slowly building confidence in chaotic situations. The emotional side of this stage is just as important as the technical. Many people quit at white belt because it feels like drowning. You show up, get smashed, go home sore, and wonder if you're cut out for it. But those who stay discover something deeper. They realize jiu-jitsu isn't about being better than your teammates, it's about being better than you were yesterday. White belt teaches resilience, and it forces you to deal with discomfort, to keep showing up even when you're frustrated, and to accept that growth takes time. Over weeks and months, the chaos starts to settle. Patterns emerge, and you recognize when a guard pass is coming. You sense when a choke is being set up, and you learn how to frame with your arms. You also get the sense of how to create space with your hips, and how to slow things down when you're overwhelmed. These aren't flashy skills, but they are the foundation for everything else. For the first time, you're not just reacting, you're starting to anticipate. That shift is the first sign that you're moving beyond survival. White belt isn't about winning medals or dominating roles. It's about learning how not to lose and developing the fundamentals of defense, understanding the value of patience, and proving to yourself that you can handle the grind. More than anything, it's about mindset. The belt forces you to let go of pride, embrace the process, and celebrate small victories. Every tap you avoid, every round you survive, every detail you finally understand that they're all stepping stones forward. If you can endure the white belt stage, you've already accomplished something most people never will. You've proven that you're willing to face discomfort head on, that you're willing to learn the hard way, and that you're ready to build the foundation for everything that comes after. And once those foundations are finally in place, jiu-jitsu begins to transform. The next belt is where things really start to click, and where the art stops feeling like chaos and starts feeling like something you can control. Blue belt. The blue belt is the first big milestone in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and for many people, it's the stage where everything starts to feel real. When you first tie that blue belt around your waist, it means you've survived the grind of white belt. You've stuck through all the times you wanted to quit, you've tapped hundreds of times, and now you're finally starting to put the pieces together. It's a moment of pride, but also a wake-up call, because at blue belt, the expectations change. You're no longer just a beginner. This is the belt where fundamentals start to become second nature. The guard, which felt confusing at white belt, suddenly makes sense. You start to see the logic behind different guards: closed guard, half guard, open guard, and understand how they connect to sweeps and submissions. Escapes that once felt impossible become doable because now you know how to stay calm under pressure and use timing instead of brute strength. Submissions like the triangle, armbar, kimura, and rear naked choke aren't just random moves anymore, they're weapons you can set up intentionally. Blue belt is also the belt where you begin to develop your own style. Some people fall in love with playing staying guard, experimenting with spider guard, lasso, or even early leg locks. Others discover they prefer smashing through defenses with pressure passing. Some lean toward wrestling-heavy approaches, using takedowns and top control. At this level, you're no longer just copying techniques. You're choosing what fits you and starting to build your identity as a grappler. But blue belt is also where the honeymoon phase ends. The novelty of learning something completely new is gone, and now the grind really sets in. This is why so many people quit at blue belt. Progress slows down and the learning curve feels steeper, and suddenly you realize how endless jiu-jitsu really is. It can feel like you've climbed a mountain, only to look up and see that the peak is still far, far away. Those who push through this stage come out sharper and more disciplined. Blue belt teaches you consistency. You can't just show up once or twice a week and expect to improve. You start to understand the value of drilling, of sharpening small details, of showing up even on the days when you don't feel like it. Blue belt isn't about proving you're the best on the mats. It's about proving to yourself that you're committed for the long haul. It's also the belt where you begin to give back, even in small ways. You're not a teacher yet, but brand new white belts will look to you for guidance. They'll ask you how to escape mount, how to set up a triangle choke, or even how to tie their belt. And in helping them, you realize just how much you've learned since you started. In many ways, blue belt is the foundation of everything that comes after. It's the belt that takes you from surviving to actually fighting back with intention. It's the stage that weeds out the casuals from the lifers. And it's the point where jiu-jitsu really stops being just a hobby and starts becoming part of who you are. And once you've built that foundation and carved out your identity, the next stage takes things to an entirely new level where you move from just knowing techniques to truly mastering how to use them. Purple belt. Purple belt is often called the most fun belt in jiu-jitsu, and there's a reason for that. By the time you reach this level, you've survived the grind of white belt, built the base at blue belt, and now you finally get to see the art in martial arts. This is the belt where you stop treating techniques as isolated tricks and begin to see the full system behind them. It's not just an armbar anymore, it's how the armbar connects to the triangle, how the triangle connects to the omoplata, and how the omoplata opens up the sweep. Everything begins to flow. At purple belt, you're not reacting, you're dictating. You're the one setting traps, creating chains, and forcing your opponent to respond to you. This is the belt where you start to feel like you actually own your game. You don't just have moves anymore, you have a style. Maybe it's aggressive guard play, maybe it's relentless passing, maybe it's a slick mix of both, but whatever it is, it's yours. People at the academy start to know you for it. When they roll with you, they know what's coming, and it still works anyway. Purple belts are also dangerous in a different way. They've put in years of mat time, and they've seen enough to have answers for almost everything. You can no longer just catch them with something basic. They know the traps. They know the escapes. They've been there before, and that's why sparring with a purple belt feels different. They're comfortable everywhere, and they're constantly 2 or 3 moves ahead. But purple belt isn't just about improving yourself. It's the belt where you start giving back. At this stage, beginners and even blue belts start looking up to you for guidance. You're no longer just a student. You're becoming a mentor, whether you realize it or not. Teaching someone how to shrimp properly or helping them fix their guard pass isn't just for them. It makes you better too. Explaining techniques forces you to understand them on a deeper level. That's why purple belt is often where people truly begin to own their knowledge. It's also the belt where you prove you're serious. A lot of people never make it this far. White belts drop off, blue belts burn out, but if you've reached purple, it means you've put in years of training and made a long-term commitment. It's not a phase anymore. It's who you are. Being a purple belt means you're a problem solver. You can adapt mid-roll. You can flow from defense into offense seamlessly. You can adjust on the fly when a move fails instead of freezing up. For the first time, jiu-jitsu stops feeling like a puzzle you're trying to solve and starts feeling like a language you can speak fluently. But as exciting as purple belt is, it's still not mastery. The techniques are sharp, the game is yours, but the polish and refinement, that comes at the next stage. Brown belt. By the time someone reaches brown belt, they've already spent close to a decade on the mats. The basics are second nature. The techniques aren't something you have to think about anymore, they're automatic. But this stage isn't about learning more moves. It's about refining everything you already know to the smallest detail. At brown belt, jiu-jitsu starts to feel sharp. The fundamentals you built as a blue belt, the creativity you developed at purple, now it's about polishing them to a razor's edge. Every grip, every angle, every transition matters. Brown belts don't just attack, they anticipate the counters and the counters to those counters. They understand not only how to finish a submission, but how to set it up 5 steps in advance so the opponent doesn't even realize they're walking into a trap. This is also the belt where you're forced to face holes in your game. At purple, you might have been able to skate by with flashy chains or scrambles, but at brown, those gaps get exposed. The level of competition is higher. Every small mistake can cost you. That's why refinement becomes the theme of this stage. Tightening up escapes, sharpening your pressure passing, making your guard retention bulletproof. It's about smoothing out the rough edges that kept you from being a complete grappler. Brown belts are often leaders in the gym. They run warm-ups, teach classes, and mentor lower belts. In doing so, they discover that teaching is one of the best ways to refine their own knowledge. Explaining a move forces you to simplify it and understand it at its core. That clarity shows up in your own roles, where your jiu-jitsu feels efficient, clean, and effective. And while some belts are about experimentation, brown belt is about ownership. You know what works for you. You have a clear identity on the mats, whether that's a crushing top game, a slick guard, or a specialty like leg locks or chokes. By now, you're not just reacting to what's happening, you're dictating it. But the brown belt stage can also be humbling in a different way. Because you're so close to black, expectations rise. People start treating you as if you already are a black belt. Lower belts roll harder with you, testing themselves. Coaches push you to refine your mindset as much as your technique. It's not enough to just be good. You're expected to be consistent, disciplined, and capable of carrying yourself like a future black belt. The beauty of this stage is that it often feels like the last big climb before the summit. Every roll, every class, every detail polished is part of that final preparation. And when all the pieces come together, you're not just skilled, you're complete. The brown belt isn't the finish line, but it's the last stretch before black. And once you've refined every tool, smoothed out every weakness, and solidified your own style, you're ready for the moment everyone dreams about, tying on the black belt. Black belt. Reaching black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is the dream for almost every practitioner who ties a white belt for the first time. It represents the end of one journey and the beginning of another. For years, you've been learning, surviving, refining, and evolving, and now you wear the rank that signifies mastery. But here's the truth. Black belt isn't the finish line, it's a new starting point. By the time someone earns a black belt, they've usually spent well over a decade on the mats. Thousands of hours of drilling, sparring, competing, and teaching. They've tapped countless times, endured injuries, sacrificed evenings, weekends, and sometimes even careers to stay committed to the art. That long grind is what gives the belt its weight. It's not just about skill, it's about persistence and proving that jiu-jitsu has become a way of life. Technically, a black belt is expected to have a deep understanding of every area of the game. Guard passing, guard retention, submissions, escapes, pressure, movement, strategy, nothing is unfamiliar anymore. A black belt doesn't just know techniques, they know when and why to use them. They understand timing in a way that feels almost instinctual. They can flow between positions seamlessly, adjusting in real time to whatever their opponent gives them. To lower belts, it often feels like they're always one step ahead, because they are. But black belt is about more than just winning roles. At this stage, many practitioners take on the role of a mentor. They begin giving back to the community that shaped them. Teaching, coaching, and guiding the next generation becomes as important as their own training. A black belt isn't just a fighter, they're a leader on the mats. And while everyone's style is different, the common thread is a sense of responsibility. To pass on knowledge, to represent the art well, and to embody the values of discipline and respect that jiu-jitsu is built on. Culturally, the black belt also carries a kind of reverence. For most people, seeing someone with a black belt is a symbol of mastery, of decades of dedication. It comes with respect, but also expectations. The belt doesn't make you unbeatable, far from it, but it does mean that you've put in the time to understand jiu-jitsu on a level few ever reach. Many black belts will tell you that this stage is humbling in its own way, because you realize how endless the art really is. Even with a black belt tied around your waist, there's still so much more to learn. That's the real meaning of black belt. It isn't the peak of the mountain, it's the opening of a new path. A black belt is a recognition of everything you've achieved, but also a challenge to keep going, to keep improving, and to keep giving back. It's a milestone, not an end. And for the rare practitioners who keep climbing beyond black belt, there are higher ranks that symbolize not just personal mastery, but a lifetime of service to jiu-jitsu. That's where the coral and red belts come in, stages reserved for those who dedicate decades to shaping the art for future generations. Red/coral belt. Beyond black belt, there are only a handful of levels that very few practitioners will ever reach. After decades of dedication, a black belt begins earning degrees, and eventually those degrees turn into the coral belt, a red and black or red and white belt that represents not just mastery of technique, but an entire lifetime spent in service to jiu-jitsu. The coral belt isn't about competition anymore. By this point, most holders are long past the days of stepping into tournaments. Instead, their focus is on teaching, mentoring, and preserving the art. Coral belts are the professors, the pioneers, and the storytellers. People who have dedicated 30, 40, even 50 years of their life to spreading jiu-jitsu across the world. They're the ones who created academies, built lineages, and mentored generations of champions. Their legacy isn't measured by medals, but by the impact they've had on students and the art itself. And above even that lies the red belt, the highest possible rank in Brazilian jiu-jitsu, reserved only for those who have devoted their entire life to the art. It's a belt of pure respect and recognition. Very few in history have ever worn it. The red belt doesn't symbolize being the most dangerous fighter in the room anymore. Instead, it represents being a guardian of jiu-jitsu, a custodian of its history, values, and traditions. At this stage, the journey has come full circle from the humble white belt learning to survive to the coral and red belts who have shaped the very culture of the sport. The red belt is not just a personal achievement. It's a living reminder that jiu-jitsu is bigger than any single competitor. It's an art that continues to grow because of those who carried it forward for a lifetime. Now that we've been through every belt, let me know what belt you're at down in the comments. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe.